Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I'm loving what we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to get right to it. Intuition. Do you have it? Many believe that we all have intuition, but you need to kind of tune into what that intuition is and really make it work for you. And she knows all about it. She is a Reiki master, teacher, intuitive life coach, clairvoyant medium, and she's back with us. And she's intuitive. She's Joan Widen on the program. Hey, Joan, how you doing?
Good. I'm great, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, good to have you back here. Oh, by the way, happy birthday. No one passed.
Thank you.
I'm not intuitive that way. Uh, how do you define intuitive? I think we all have a different view of it. How do you?
Right. Okay. So while the dictionary definition is the power of faculty or of attaining direct knowledge or cognition without evidential rational thought or interference. So,
Hmm.
but intuition for me is just a knowing. It just comes and it's there and everyone has it. Everyone just says, well, but I don't have it, but you do. We all just have to sit in the present a little bit more and listen to our bodies because our bodies tell us everything. Because there's times where we're like, should I go to that party? I'm not quite sure if I should go to that party. And we still go and something happens and you're like, yeah, I should have listened to myself and not
Billion,
right?
billion percent. Would you say that intuition is your gut feeling?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
We were all built with gut feelings. What else do you think that is? Like it's your gut tells you to do something, and when you listen to it, it's usually right. That's an intuition to me.
The reason I know that it is legit
Yeah.
is I know all the times I didn't listen to my gut, like major stuff,
Yeah.
major life-changing things. And
Yeah.
I know I went against it, and that's how I know that it's real. Of course, there are things we have feelings, and it turns out to be that way. But there's also the other, and I see the other. I, I feel the biggest challenge with us is interpreting the gut feeling, blocking this out so that you
That's
can
right.
get that signal.
Right. But if you look at a lot of the successful people in the world today, they always say they use their gut or their intuition. And I believe Steve Jobs was that way. And who else was prominent? I can't remember their names, but Steve Jobs is the one that predominantly comes to mind at this time.
Mhm.
And he used it every day. And look at what he did to Apple.
Yeah. Yeah. And he must have had, and you know what? Even when he was ill, I remember
Mm-hmm.
reading about him that he used his intuition on the medical route he took, which prolonged his life a
Yes.
decent number of years in terms of the treatment. So you, clairvoyant medium, Reiki master, teacher, coach, all of that.
Yes.
How do you know it's your gut feeling, your intuition?
Um, a lot of times if for example for me, if I'm really close to the situation, it's sometimes tough, right? Because some people, like my best friends, they'll be like, well, tell me this, you got to tell me this, and I go, okay, well, let me go away for a little bit and come back because you've told me too much information, and so now I have to like divide which is what is intuition and which is what you told me. Does that make sense?
Billion percent. It's you need
So
to dissect what's going on there. You can get to
that's
the
right.
meat of it. Yeah.
Just like when we did the healing for you online, right? Um, I was speaking to head office and she goes, oh, that would be great because Steve just had surgery today. And I'm like, stop talking. She's like, what? I'm like, just stop talking. I said, I don't want to know anymore.
Yeah.
And I said, right. And she's like, what? And I'm like, no, seriously, if you start saying more, I'm just going to hang up on you. Just again, I don't want to be swayed by anything, right? And then it wouldn't be authentic. And that's why I told you right away that when we first started that I knew you had surgery, but I didn't know anything else.
And you know what?
Right?
Mediums that I know do the same exact thing. It's like, "Nup, nup, 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 don't tell me anymore.
Zip it.
Yeah, zip it. Done. Done. Um, because yeah, it not only does it jade you, but it probably clouds your intuition because you've
Mm,
got too much information going on. And
correct.
when you are going to use your intuition for somebody, let's say you're doing a reading, whatever it might be, somebody asks
Yep.
you a question, should I take this job? Should I not? Do you go into your own space, your own zone, call it meditate, whatever you want to call it, just so you can get the answer?
Absolutely. So someone books when someone books a reading with me, sometimes I don't get their last names, which is fine. I just go, okay, right before our reading, I'll sit and I will do a quick meditation and check in with them, like their higher self, and say, okay, tell me what they need to hear, not what they want to hear, what
Hmm.
they need to hear. Right. And some people are like, but I didn't want to know that. I'm like, well, you needed to, apparently. I said, you can ask me the stuff that you wanted to know. I can tell you a little bit about that, but honestly, that's not what you're meant to hear today. You're meant to hear today is this, and you're not focusing on this. You're trying to focus on this. But if you don't focus on this can't transpire, kind of thing, right?
So, what about if you get something that is not the very best message for somebody?
Mm. Okay, so if I get, say, someone is going to pass soon, right? I won't say so and so is going to die within whatever. Um, because oddly, I seem to get pretty close to dates, but I always say, you know what? Have you talked to your father lately? How much time have you spent with them? I think it's a great time for you to start, you know, um, spending time with them,
Hmm.
phone
Building
them. You
building your
haven't talked,
relationship.
right?
Yeah, just finding a different way around it. Yeah.
Right, right. And then they're like, oh, okay. I haven't really thought about that, like he is getting older or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I said, I think it's time for you to mend those fences and just kind of spend more time with him as much as you can, because I think right at this moment in time, you would enjoy his company
Mm.
more so than you did before. Right.
Yep.
And then so when they pass, then it's like, oh, I get why you said that.
Yep.
Right? So it was just enjoying in the moment instead of like, oh my God, I gotta spend time with them because they're gonna die. Right? And then your meeting is awkward
Yeah.
instead of
You know what?
being
You're being
legit.
proactive in terms of giving them advice based on the information you got. Because if you just delivered that information,
Mm-hmm.
dad's going to pass soon. This is what I'm getting. That might send somebody into a spin, and
Right.
they're not going to use that time the way they should.
Right.
And if you
Right.
deliver it that way, yeah, you might want to spend some more time with him. He'd really like to hang. That's what I'm getting. He wants to hang more with you, or whatever it might be. Yeah,
Right. Or,
love it.
it's time and things are like that. And then if they don't, they don't. It's up to them, right? Like again, it's one of those things. I ripping off the band-aid is not a great situation
Right.
in that, right? So it's it's all in that. Or even say I see that their job is coming to an end soon because they're getting laid off because it's a recession or whatever, right? I'll be like, so enjoying your job? Yeah. And I'm like, I think it's time for you to start looking for something different because it feels like there's something better, bigger,
Yeah,
better out there
yeah,
for you.
exactly. Well, you may not realize it, but you've done your time there.
Right.
There's
It's
something else.
coming to an, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And it's time, right? And they usually know it's time to go. Do you know what I mean? So then it's easy to segue into, hey, why don't you actually, it's always easier to look for a job when you have a job. Let's just, like then there's no pressure and you can go and you can relax, you can have fun in an interview. You're not stressed and
Right. Knowing that I need this job.
right, right.
Totally.
Because I had one lady, I told her, I'm like, I feel like you need to look now and whatever, whatever. And then she called me and said, you were 1,000% correct. And I didn't listen.
Mhm.
Sorry. I don't know what to say. Right. And that was a message from her mom. Right. That wasn't even just she's like, what does my mom say? And I'm like, your mom is saying you need to find something else where they appreciate you and this and that and this and that.
Yep. Where do you go for your Your intuition, your inspiration, your messages. Do you have spirit guides that you call upon? How does it work when you need a message?
What I do is I clear my mind. Well, not, I don't know, it's weird. I close my eyes and then all of a sudden I start seeing colors and I'm like, okay, well, this is great. And then I'm like, okay, now show me. And then the colors will so it will be like for you, your color is mostly blue. You like blue, right? And so my color, I like purple. So it shows me purple and then it starts to fade into pictures and um like a little bit of a little short film or a movie, or even I just hear certain weird things that makes no sense, right? Like then I go from there.
Hmm.
But yeah, right?
How,
So
how about for the
go
rest of
ahead.
us? Like if we want, you know, we've said before that you
Mm-hmm.
feel that we all have intuition. It's just the
Mm-hmm.
level of tuning into it. Some can more than others. How do we know that it's a gut feeling? How do we trust? How do we learn to trust and have faith in our intuition or gut feeling?
Okay, so the trust thing, it's honestly, it is more of a, you just gotta go with it and trust it, right? Like the more you do it, the more you'll trust it. Like that's really, it's kind of like in life, right? If we stay with what's comfortable in our life right now, we're staying in the present. We're actually, no, we're staying in the past because the past is always comfort. We know that's going to happen. It chugs along all the time, right?
Yep.
So when we want to move forward, there's some like, oh, I don't know, right? Like it's we have a little bit of anxiety or we have a little bit of nervousness, and that's totally fair, right? And it's like you have to feel that, but then you test it and you go, okay, well, and you can test it on little things. You don't like not life altering things that you test it on. You test it, okay, well, if I'm supposed to go, um, gut tell me like let my stomach turn upside down or something. Do you know what I mean? Or
Yeah,
if I'm not supposed to go, make it so I feel really sick kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
and then you can start to build on that way. But honestly, if you go, and I personally, when I started, I go, okay, so tell me, and I would say it out loud, tell me what I like to do in this situation. And I'd close my eyes, and in the first 3 seconds, whatever you hear is your intuition. Anything after that, you're making it up. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And I've heard that before. Always go with the first thing you think of. And
Mm-hmm.
on the not important things, even like what should I have for dinner tonight? Like honestly, I'm going out to
Right.
dinner. I'm trying to pick a
Sweet.
restaurant where to go. So and I don't know. So I'm trying to think, going with somebody else. So it's like, where should we go? I don't know. So I should probably when we're done, think about that. First thing that
I
pops.
heard Vietnamese. I don't know if you like Vietnamese. That's what I
Say that
heard.
again.
Vietnamese.
I wish there was one around here. There's not. Yeah. Um, Further into the city, there is, but I'm staying local tonight. But
Gotcha.
but yeah, that whole thing where the first thing that pops in your head is your intuition, your gut, and then after,
Right.
either you're making it up or you're thinking too much about it, or you're letting
Correct.
other things come in.
You're bringing what you're clouding it with your wants, right? So if you let it go further than 3 seconds, then you're going, no, this is what I want. So I'm changing it to
Right.
what I want. Does that make
Or
sense?
or what you think you want.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right. So either way, you're making that up.
I've never heard it put that way, but right. It is.
So honestly, and sometimes if you're unsure, you go, okay, clear, right? Like clear, clear, clear. And then just go, okay, and say it again and then allow it, right? And then if you're not quite sure, is this mine or is someone else's, right?
Hmm.
So the thing is with me, I'm also an empath. So it's really difficult sometimes to feel, to, to sometimes intuitionally only because I get all the feelings as well, right?
Yep.
So, for example, I can't watch boxing. or any like MMM fighting or anything like that because it physically hurts me to watch it. So every time they get, I'm like, oh my God.
I can't believe you're saying that because I agree with
Why?
I agree with you. And I don't think I'm an empath, but I feel it. And like
Like
even like
here. Yep.
yes, no, no. Even and this is gonna sound ridiculous, but like a TV show like The Funniest Videos and
Oh, yes.
where people are
That's too
falling
funny.
and getting hurt and just downstairs and stuff. I'm like, oh no, oh, and other people like, funny, oh yeah.
Funny is
No,
one thing, but when it's like really like,
exactly. Yeah,
I'm like, no, thank you.
yeah.
Like,
Or
because I already can see it before it happens, right?
Uh, sometimes I do, and I don't think like
See?
there's a Tosh Point oh. I don't know if you've ever seen that show where they just take videos and they
No.
look at them. It's like a bunch of shows like he's a comedian, Daniel Tosh. But they'll show videos from YouTube and something will happen to somebody, and it's like, their arm is bent back the other way.
Oh,
It's like, oh God, I don't find it funny. I don't.
no. I almost throw up when I see that.
Wow, I get you. Yeah.
But so what was it? I had the one of my clients, she was married, or she is, I should say, not was, is married to, I can't remember if he was a city policeman or an RCMP. So the RCMP would be our national, right? Police
Okay.
force. And he would find missing people, right? And I walked in to their house because I had a session with her. And he looked at me and he almost with disgust. It was kind of funny. He's like, why is the dog sitting under the table? And I'm like, I don't know, because he likes sitting there. He looks at me like, no, I'm not. Okay, well, tell me why. He goes, well, the massage room is underneath. And ever since you've been here, he lays under the table. And I went, okay. And he goes, do you know why that is? I'm like, no clue. And he goes, well, did you do something? I'm like, what would I do? I'm like, you're an RCMP. What would I do? I know you checked that room. Oh, and he's like, oh, and I'm like, I have no clue. I said the energy when I go places amplifies. So maybe the dog really likes it. And he's like, well, yeah, because if we leave the door open and we can't find him, that's where he is. He just hangs out there. And I said, what
Hmm.
do you do? And he goes, I find missing people. And I went, oh, okay. And I said, so how do you do that? Because I said, that's really cool. I'd like to, kind of get into that and help you, right? And he's like, oh no, I don't need your help.
How do you,
He's just
how
like,
do you, how do you know?
and then he just said, I always find my people. And I'm like, really? So tell me about this. And he goes, I just have I just know, and I have this knowing and my gut. And I'm like, really? Tell me more. And he's telling me more about this. And I said, so you know what makes you really good at your job? And he's like, yeah. What? And I'm like, intuition. I said, so what you do to find missing people is exactly what I do to help people like your wife and your daughter. And he didn't know what to say after that. And I'm like, anyways, off to my session I go.
Do you think, Joan, that people are afraid to admit that they might be intuitive? Like we say that everybody,
Absolutely.
but like some people may think they'd be looked at, kind of weird if they would say, "Yeah, I'm too intuitive." People have told me that I am, like more so than the average person. And sometimes if it comes up in a conversation, I'm even afraid to say it because I think that people will think I'm like, "Oh, okay, he's a little weird." Yeah. But sometimes I get stuff and it's sometimes it's accurate. I'm not trying. I am not a medium. I don't that nothing. I just try to tune more into it and read
Right.
the gut feeling.
And that's just because you're being more present within yourself,
Trying.
within your body, right?
Yes.
And so when we are, things just come,
Yeah.
right? Naturally, because we all have it. It is our sixth sense and it is there. We just choose not to necessarily use it.
So how do you or anybody, like you said before, you wipe the slate so you
Yeah.
can flip it. How do you get a clean slate? How do you block it all out?
In what sense? I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
Okay, you want to use your intuition. You're going to go
Hmm.
for the first 3 seconds of whatever pops in your head,
Yep.
but, but you want to start clear. And life is so like crazy. Everything
Yeah.
all at once. I just like everything go away. I guess you could meditate, but if you just want to think quick, how do you make it all go away?
Okay. So, okay, this is going to sound really funny,
Go.
but I crank the tunes. Like, just
Seriously?
dance it out. Yeah. I sing. And then I'm like, okay, I'm good. I go into whatever.
Hmm.
Right. So if I, if I'm really in my head for some reason, because I am human and,
Yep, yep.
some things bother me, even though, it's none of my business what other people think of me. It's still, it hits you sometimes. Do you know what I mean?
Sure, for sure.
Depending on the day, depending on the moon cycles, whatever. It just does. Right. And so in order for me to get out of my head that way is I just blast the tunes, rock out to it, and then go, okay, I feel good now. I can
You
do
know
this.
what? It's almost the same way as if you put music on when you're doing work, just in the background,
Yeah.
or put on
So you can
headphones
focus.
so you can focus. Yeah.
Hmm.
And after a while, you don't even know you're listening to music, but you're
Hmm.
jamming it out. You're getting it done. You're like, wow, this is good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I get it.
It's
Right?
almost like a distraction, right? The
Exactly.
distraction into going, I need to find this, I need to do this, right? Like, um, for example, the very first time we spoke, right? It wasn't visual, it was just
Yep.
on the phone, right?
Yep.
And you asked me about your mother. And I was like, I knew already that you were going to ask me that. And in the commercial, I was like, oh my God, if you're there, you need to tell me what's here. Right. So I all of a sudden I was in my head, right? And I was like, oh my goodness, what are we gonna do? Like, I don't know you very well, right? And not that I know any of my clients really well, but um I had more than 30 minutes or even 5 minutes to connect with their loved one or whatever, right? And
Hmm.
it was kind of frustrating because he wouldn't really say anything. And I'm like, oh my goodness, man, what are you doing to this? Right. And then I realized I'm like, what's with roses? Right. Like, and I thought back then that it was, you need to smell the roses because I typically don't get names. Right. So it didn't make sense to me. And instead of just saying, I don't know what's with roses, I just said it was, you need to smell the roses.
And you know something for me, of course, Rosemary, uh,
Right.
she would tell me to do that too. She would,
But
first one be
smell
the
the
first
roses.
one to say, Stop, you're doing too much. Did you eat?" Every mom says that, but yeah, but she would
Yeah.
definitely say that. She would definitely say that without a doubt.
Right.
Hmm.
So in that moment, there was no time for me to rock out and do whatever. But thankfully, you went, hey, let's go to commercial. I'm like, now I can
Mm,
like
Maybe that was
quickly go,
maybe that was a distraction though,
that's right.
from
And
our
it was.
conversation. And it could be, I could have put on Def Leppard. I could put on anything. Taylor Swift, doesn't matter. And it would have been the same effect, I would imagine. It's just
Right.
something to divert your attention from our conversation at that moment.
Right. Absolutely. I put my phone on mute and I went, okay, really think about this and see. And I was like, okay, no, wait, don't think about it. What is what is the message here? Right. And then go. Because honestly, I just gotta trust you gotta trust it that it's correct because it doesn't make sense to me. And even if it doesn't make sense to me, it's not about me. At that moment, it was about you, right? And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get it. And thank you for what you're saying because when I want to come up with an answer, get some insight, that's what I'm gonna do. That's what I'm
You
gonna
just
do.
you kind of just take a deep breath and then you can close your eyes and go, okay, tell me. And then it should tell you, right? Intuition also can get you out of jams, right? Like, for example, when I was in my teens and I was working and I was tired of waiting for everyone because they were taking too long, right? I worked at Walmart and they took forever. I'm like, come on, guys, I want to go home, right? And where we worked was you weren't allowed to park near the doors. You had to park in the far corners in the darkest part of the parking lot, right? And we always all walked together. But I was like, oh, screw this. I'm tired. I go home. So I walked by myself. All of a sudden, I hear footsteps behind me, and I'm thinking, no, those guys aren't done yet. What's going on? So I walk a little bit faster, footsteps get faster. And all of a sudden I heard, you need to turn around now. So I turned around and I said, can I help you? Like it just happened to be. And there was a guy and he almost ran into me because I stopped and I turned around and I said, can I help you? And he looked at me and he's like, in shock. He's like, I'm looking for somewhere to eat. And I'm like, really? That's the best excuse you could have? I said, there's a restaurant right there. And then he ran away. But in that moment, he could have grabbed me, right? If I hadn't had listened, but I had whipped around and said, can I help you?
Wow.
Like, what?
And even doing that could be, that could have been a setup for something disastrous, but rather confront it than have somebody do something from behind you.
Right.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And then it bought me time for the others to catch up so I could get to my car.
This is going to sound bizarre, but what's
What?
going on with your son?
Mm.
I don't know why I just got that.
Baseball is starting soon. And he's proud of himself because now he's taller than me. So
I don't know why
which is not hard.
I don't even know. I don't remember if you even had a son. It just popped in my head. I don't know. Wow. Weird. Because I'm trying to, get deeper into what we're talking about and
I guess I'll say this too. He's checking on my YouTube. So he's really like, Mom, how many subscribers do you have? And this and that. And he's totally into it. And so maybe that's why you're tapping into it because he's
I
like
don't know.
checking.
I don't
And
know.
he's like, I want to see. And he's looking at you and he's like,
weirdness. I don't know where that even. I am not a medium. I don't know why.
that's okay.
But I was thinking about it, and I don't know why that. I'm looking at you, and that just dropped in for whatever reason. I don't know.
He's a mama's boy.
Yeah. Maybe that's that. Maybe that's resonating. Maybe you're throwing that energy. We're out of time. I have like more questions.
What?
Just keep going.
What?
Yeah. Like I do a double take. I'm like, really? No way. But yeah, we are. Thank you for all the insight today. Seriously.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Like I want to, in the worst way, tune into the gut feeling, really use it when you need to use it and the intuition and everything.
Just use it because every time you don't, you always wish that you want it, that you did. Right.
Oh, gosh.
And again, for me, if I don't, I get punched. So I do it 100%.
Again, I can go for another half hour of all the times, major life situations where I just ignored it and I knew it. At that moment, it's like bad idea. Well, I'm already this far. I'll just go with it. No, should have just went the other way. But
absolutely.
That's how we learn, I guess. JoanWiden.com is your website, WIDEN. And for the rest of us that can't really interpret the feelings, the messages, you do that.
That's correct.
And you can do it virtually. You can do it for anybody anywhere around the world.
That's correct. I can show you. I can help you.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Whatever you need. And
learning. That's what we do. You're a great teacher and you make it very clear, all this stuff. And I'm going to be rocking out later and hopefully get stuff. So I might send you.
Great.
You never know.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Joan. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bet.
And by the way, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.